There is a book sitting on this desk that was published in 2007. It's a comprehensive forecast about the future of humanity, written by my father. Old predictions usually invite a specific kind of amusement. From our vantage point, the mistakes of the past look like a collection of lucky guesses and obvious blunders. Look at the classroom in this 1900s postcard. The artist could imagine a machine to automate the labor of reading, but the institution remained untouched. The children still sit in rigid rows, governed by the same 19th century structure the artist lived inside. Focusing on the primitive technology makes it easy to overlook how the vision failed. We see the machine, but we miss the institutional architecture that refused to move. If we treat the past as a joke, we lose the ability to see the same patterns in our own thinking. An aviation engineer examines a crash to find the underlying mechanism of the failure. They aren't interested in identifying a villain. They want to know which part of the system actually broke. Examining why a well-informed person in 2007 got tomorrow wrong provides a way to parse the claims we are hearing today. This is an audit of the errors thinking produces on its own, and the three categories where those errors tend to collect. This graph illustrates the illusion of the arrow. We extend a current trend into a straight line, assuming movement simply continues. But human systems behave like a pendulum. They contain restoring forces, prices, habits, or regulations that pull them back toward the center. The difficulty is that a restoring force is invisible while a trend is small. It only generates a response when the swing grows large enough. This lag allows forecasters to publish a straight-line prediction at the exact moment the swing is about to reverse. The outbound half of a swing is frequently mistaken for a permanent destination. Some predictions die because they hit a physical limit. In 1961, the rocket belt proved personal flight was possible, but demonstrated the energy density required to lift a human. That rocket belt flew for 20 seconds, and still does today. No investment relaxes the chemistry of fuel storage. It is a wall. A different kind of failure occurs in economics, where forecasters observe resource scarcity and predict a permanent collapse. They miss the signal that scarcity sends to the market. A rising price tells every innovator that finding a substitute is now worth a fortune. When the 19th century ran out of natural fertilizer, the invention of nitrogen from the sky solved the crisis. Scarcity functioned as a door with a fee, and once the price rose high enough, it funded its own solution. The most common failures happen when a prediction assumes that technical capability is the only thing that matters. In 2007, that book on the desk forecast that the internet would kill the commuting city and the physical school. The Segway was magnificent engineering, but arrived in a world with no place for it. Too fast for sidewalks, too slow for roads. The failure wasn't the machine, it was the legal and social institutions. Institutions like schools persist because they serve hidden needs. They provide childcare, facilitate parental employment, and drive human encounter. Predictors are often experts in what is new, while the forces that pull back are social, economic, and institutional. Technical capability is often the easiest thing to foresee and the hardest to implement. Our sense that forecasters are always wrong is partly a quirk of our filing system. When a prediction comes true, it stops being a claim about the future and becomes an ordinary fact. It becomes furniture. This 1964 picture phone was a commercial failure because people weren't ready to be seen on every call. Decades later, the function arrived as a free feature on our devices, becoming so ordinary we stopped noticing. We retroactively downgrade what machines achieve. Once a computer masters chess, translation, or conversation, we redefine those tasks as brute calculation. The mystery doesn't survive the solution. The failed predictions remain funny and quotable, while the successful ones dissolve into the background. We have preserved the comedy and thrown out the evidence. Forecasting fails to improve because it lacks a ledger. There is no institutional memory for failure. In the 1840s, Ignaz Semmelweis proved that hand hygiene saved lives in maternity wards, but his findings were ignored for decades by an institution with no mechanism for admitting its own errors. The deaths fell on people who had no part in the argument. Structural engineering works differently. When the Millennium Bridge swayed on its opening weekend, the failure was public and undeniable. The profession launched a research program, updated the design codes worldwide, and fixed the bridge. Professional forecasters are typically paid on delivery, years before the verdict is rendered. This rewards the striking claim over the accurate one. Every field that has improved its accuracy did so by building an institution whose purpose was to remember failures and refuse to let them be forgotten. When you hear a confident prediction today, you can ask what the restoring force is and whether the barrier to the idea is physics, price, or people. A forecast only becomes a checkable claim when it specifies what observation would prove it wrong and by what date. Without a deadline and a failure condition, it's just a mood. The man who wrote the book on my desk had a deadline, and he lacked our hindsight. He was brave enough to put his opinions on the record where they could be found. The future is often older than we think, because the world keeps returning to where it has been. Once you recognize the shape of the pendulum, you can stop falling for the illusion of the straight line.